had a pretty powerful voice there. Didn't it? It sounded like Star Wars. Now, the State Board of Education is called to order. We welcome those of you that are visiting with us today on our YouTube channel, and we're excited to have several students that we're going to hear from shortly today. Notice on the roll call that all board members are present and accounted for. Motion would be in order to approve today's agenda. Ben makes that motion. Is there a second? Michelle seconds that motion. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, motion carries unanimously. And at this point, we are excited to hear from our student organizations. And it looks like Dr. Smith, and congratulations, by the way.
Thank you, Chair Porter.
Is going to be making the introductions this morning, and it's all yours, sir.
Well, thank you, Chair Porter. Good morning, Dr. Watson, and dedicated, passionate members of the Kansas State Board of Education. KSDE is excited to celebrate Citizenship Day with you today. I'm here to introduce the student leaders of the 8 career and technical student organizations in Kansas. The career and technical student organizations enhance student learning through contextual instruction, leadership and personal development, applied learning, and real-world application. These CTSOs work as an integral component of the classroom curriculum and instruction, building upon employability and career skills and concepts through the application and engagement of students in hands-on demonstration and real-life and work experience. Through a career and technical education program, CTSOs help guide students in developing a career path, a program of study, and provide opportunities in gaining the skills and abilities needed to be successful in those careers throughout CTSO activities, programs, and competitive events. In addition, students have opportunities to hold leadership positions at the local, state, and national level, and attend leadership development conferences to network with other students, as well as business and industry partners. We had a slight dip in numbers over the last year. We're down to about 20,000 from our high of 23,000 student participants in these organizations. The elected leaders of those groups are here to share with you this morning. And I'd like to introduce the first speaker from the Business Professionals Association from Shawnee Mission Northwest High School, President Lincoln Bartlett.
Welcome, Lincoln. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lincoln Bartel, and I am a senior at Shawnee Mission Northwest. I'm the president of the Kansas chapter of Business Professionals of America. This career technical student organization covers 6 major areas: business management, information technology, digital design, finance, office administration, and health administration. We run 3 annual events in Kansas: our fall leadership conference, and then a regional and state competition. Also, a final conference is organized nationally with various qualification requirements. The organization's biggest goals are to develop capable students that will thrive in business and medical fields, provide members with hands-on experience in simulated workplaces, and foster connections between students across school districts and state lines. The most significant ways that COVID has affected BPA are simply within the cancellations of our major conferences. Although we quickly adapted to online competitions, we had to outright cancel our nationals in 2020. So, from a business standpoint, we were initially disappointed from losing money on these canceled events and unnecessary dues, and we struggled to not only recruit new members, but to retain our current ones. However, we do recognize that above all else, it is necessary to ensure the health and safety of our students. Nonetheless, in the midst of the pandemic, we eventually found success through increasing our social media outreach and setting up additional events online that we would not have considered in a typical year. Over a year and a half, we have nearly tripled the number of followers on the Kansas BPA Instagram page, from about 80 to over 220. And we now regularly update all social media accounts, including the TikTok one we made in 2020, with relevant announcements and fun challenges. A few highlights from our recent social media campaign include a mascot creation competition where students submitted their drawn-up ideas, as well as a harvester fundraiser that we held over Thanksgiving. We have also been able to better connect with regions that are less easy to reach in person through online officer meet and greets. On an international scale, BPA has chapters in Haiti, Peru, and most recently, China. This new focus on virtual engagement has increased the accessibility of national elections for international members. And in 2021, we actually elected a representative from China as our national secretary. So, even with the increased difficulty in both keeping our current members interested and enticing new ones, we have found a way to thrive in our new online environment and cannot wait to completely reestablish safe in-person events as the pandemic comes to a close. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our second speaker is from the DECA organization, attending Olathe North High School. I present President Buseau Drame.
Welcome.
Welcome, good morning. DECA is a national organization that immerses students in the world of business through competitive events with written and spoken portions. We have 225,000 members across the globe, and about 1,500 of those are here in Kansas. DECA has 4 divisions: high school, collegiate, alumni, and professional DECA. The organization focuses on 5 main subjects, those being marketing, finance, hospitality, management, and entrepreneurship, teaching members important skills such as communication, creativity, and critical thinking. In a typical school year, many different competitions are held. Invitationals, where students compete but do not continue on. The State and Career Development Conference, also known as SCDC, where members compete to go to ICDC, the International Career Development Conference. Despite being stuck in our homes, DECA kept students connected with each other and our education, even through school closings and national shutdowns. Due to upcoming state and international competitions, we as students took initiative by planning virtual study sessions and practice times. This kept us motivated while navigating an unprecedented experience. Between groups, we collaborated, shared ideas, and gave suggestions. Our minds were constantly stimulated by the limitless knowledge that can be acquired while creating these projects. For example, my group learned about marketing and how it impacts businesses of different sectors. And another group learned about how hotels and restaurants followed company and state guidelines, which, as we know, is very relevant today. Beyond competitions, we as a chapter worked together with our advisor to figure out how to proceed with our school coffee shop, pending the rules for when we return to school. DECA gave us a path to stay connected and continue learning through the pandemic. Both of those were vital to our mental health and educational progress. I personally grew closer with members of my chapter and not only learned just about business, but about how to continue my education with the resources available to me. SCDC is a conference that all DECA members look forward to and prepare for months in advance. It is a space where students can challenge themselves, connect with colleges, themselves, and businesses. Due to the pandemic, we have had to go virtual for the 2nd year in a row. And despite the challenge, Kansas DECA continued to provide us with opportunities to connect and demonstrate our skills. We submitted our presentations and received feedback from judges. We interacted with students through trivia nights over Zoom hosted by the state team. We learned about how Kansas DECA overcame these challenges during our opening session. Even with our conference being held virtually, we as students had an enriching experience and plan to use these skills we acquired in other aspects of our lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker represents the future business leaders of America. From Kingsman High School, Isabelle Youngers.
Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you guys for your time and attention. My name is Isabelle Youngers and I am from Kingman High School. I'm a senior and I am the state president for Kansas FBLA, which is Future Business Leaders of America, and it's really just what it sounds like. Similar to the other organizations, we do hold several conferences a year. We start in January with our district conferences. We have the state of Kansas similar to you guys, divided into districts, and we have a representative of each district on our state board, and they hold their respective conferences in their school. And members compete from anything from finance to sports and entertainment management, healthcare administration, really anything you can think of, we have an event for it. And then in March, we have the state conference, which the top 4 qualifiers can then move on to the national conference, which is held in June this year. It will be in Chicago. So I think similar to every other organization, the most significant impact COVID has had is on our numbers. Especially in 2020 when things all started and we've had to go virtual, we have had a decrease in our numbers. Fortunately, this last year we have been back in person, and so our membership has increased. I know from my local chapter, we went from about 70 members to over 110 this year. So, and I think that speaks for the rest of Kansas. So I think the most significant thing that we have done for our members is offered them a source of stability. We haven't ever canceled anything. We have tried our hardest to adapt and change things that we need to, but by no means ever cancel anything. We have established a virtual chapter, which we are going to continue with after the pandemic, hopefully as soon as that may be, to offer those students who don't have as easy access to a local FBLA chapter or to an advisor, because there are so many wonderful business organizations to be a part of. So our virtual chapter is headed by our state advisor, and we just have the opportunity for, if your school doesn't have a chapter, or if you are living in an extremely rural area, you still have the opportunity to be involved and go to districts and go to state and reap the benefits of this organization. So like I said, fortunately, we have been lucky enough to be back in person. Our district conferences are coming up later this month, and so we will see how that goes. And as of right now, we're planning our state conference at the end of March to be in person as well, as long as COVID permits. We have just really been focusing on allowing our members to adapt. None of us know what is coming next, obviously, as the last couple years have proved. So really, we have focused on our organization preparing us for real world circumstances. Just like in FBLA and the real world, no one knows what's coming next. No one knows how to best prepare. So we have used our resources to just teach our members to be adaptable, and we have just served as a source of stability, and I'm very proud of our organization for doing so. Furthermore, we have promoted activity and through awards, especially at the national level. They have been working very hard on activities to send out to the state and local chapters to just keep members involved, and even, you know, when you have to stay home or things like that, you still are involved in the organization and you still feel like you're a part of this team. So that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you.
Presenting the FCCLA president from Seaman High School, Renee Cabrera.
Welcome.
Hello, everyone. I would like to thank all of you guys so much for this opportunity. I know we haven't been here in a long time, but I'm super grateful for this. My name is Renee Cabrera. I am a junior from Seaman High School here in Topeka, so it wasn't too far of a drive from here. I'd just like to first off express my sense of gratitude towards you guys. You guys are all in a really important position right now, and I'd like to just thank you all from a student's perspective, how much work you guys take into this job, and we're so thankful for you guys. But getting into my speech, FCCLA stands for the Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America. We are a national organization that serves the hearts of over 150,000 people in the United States, and a community impact of over 16 million every year through our community service and youth-led projects by members. Here in Kansas, we have over 4,000 members with over 185 chapters serving in every corner of the state, which are all working to impact families. It is sad, though, that times did get tough because of the pandemic. We were aiming towards goals never reached before in FCCLA history. I know it is sad that goals and achievements were cut short because of the pandemic. However, the silver lining in this situation is the fact that now we as FCCLA members took the time and to focus on our members and their emotional needs during this time. First off, the biggest need we saw was the huge mental health crisis that happened because of the pandemic. What we know is that 50% of lifetime mental health cases begin at just the age of 14. FCCLA serves this age group so strongly that there was no way that we could simply put this issue aside. Kansas FCCLA not only pushed for stronger mental health for youth, but provided some normalcy for students to continue to compete in our Students Taking Action with Recognition events, also known as STAR events, through a completely virtual format. As soon as the pandemic hit, we had to continue our STAR events through a completely virtual format through our state leadership conference. We sadly maintained being virtual until this past summer, when more than 115 Kansans took on the city of Nashville. Kansas had the largest amount of participants at our hybrid national leadership conference than any other state or territory. Lastly, FCCLA provided numerous virtual resources for integrating themselves into FCS classrooms. This helped many teachers in a time of need with some much needed resources. Like all these other amazing organizations, we were able to not only sustain the same magnitude of impact that we had prior to the pandemic, but we were able to dig deep into the problems that were already there before COVID-19. Simply put a lens on it. We could have not done these amazing things if it wasn't for Kansas FCCLA State Advisor Pam Lamb and the support we received from the Department of Education and most importantly, you all. We could have not made such an impact to the pandemic if it wasn't for our amazing advisors and mentors. Thank you guys all so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Presenting the FFA president from Greeley County High School and Hutchinson Community College, Josie Schmidt.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Josie Schmidt. I went to Greeley County High School and currently a student at Hutchinson Community College, and I'm currently serving as the Kansas FFA State Sentinel. FFA is one component of the three-part intercircular model on the agricultural education program. This intercircular model, is composed of three parts of classroom education in and about the biggest industry in Kansas, agriculture, development of workplace skills through supervised agricultural experiences, or SAEs, and development of leadership skills through actively participating in the FFA organization. As we look at the more than 220 agricultural education programs across the state, the students' involvement in FFA activities and experiences helped them stay connected through the pandemic. Programs were quick to discover that having safe, meaningful activities would help students stay connected with other members as well as their communities. I am from Tribune in Greeley County, the least populated county in Kansas. During my senior year in high school, a friend and we cooked cookies and we delivered them to the elderly in our community while everyone was isolated. This meant a lot to me, and not only did it help me through the pandemic, but it also helped many others as well. And this is just one story of the many that happened across the state of Kansas. Due to the COVID pandemic, FFA has adapted to virtual competitive career and leadership development events, conventions, and service activities. Our organization held the 2020 and the 2021 Kansas FFA State Convention on a virtual platform. We have become more reliant on technology to assist us with our events, such as the use of Zooms for competition meetings and just staying connected. As we've had an increase of social media too, and we use social media for more than just promotion. While we typically used to travel to go to contests, during this past year, we were able to hold contests virtually, and chapters in the southwest part of the state were able to participate in a virtual contest that was held in Blue Valley, and that was an opportunity that we wouldn't have had on a normal year. And that opportunity helps gain more experience for us. The FFA also has updated our website to help
not only members, but also teachers and association workers with getting information and staying connected. FFA has adapted to the pandemic to keep our members growing and our communities connected and to keep heading towards the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Presenting the HOSA president from Pittsburgh High School, Joy Lee.
Welcome.
Good morning. I thank the chair and you all for your time today. My name is Joy Lee. I am currently the president of Kansas HOSA Future Health Professionals. HOSA Future Health Professionals is an international career technical student organization. It promotes career opportunities to students who are prospective healthcare workers. During my short 3 minutes with you all today, I would like to go over 3 main talking points. First, I would like to talk about how COVID specifically impacted our organization. Second, how leadership changed drastically due to the pandemic. And finally, how Kansas HOSA actually helped students come out of the pandemic successfully. So first, how did COVID impact HOSA specifically? On the national scope of the United States, we were down about 25% in our numbers. And that same number was replicated roughly in Kansas as well. All of our statewide conferences were virtual for the past 2 academic school years. And because of this, students missed out on networking opportunities to connect with peers all across the state. And the officer team also missed out on being able to connect with the students that they did serve. So for example, this past fall conference, we had it virtual, and we were recording our opening and closing ceremonies. Instead of talking to a large ballroom of students, we were talking to an iCamera. So there definitely were some setbacks when it came to connecting with students across the state. And that leads me to my next point of how the officer team changed drastically because of the pandemic. Before COVID-19, the state officer team only met once every few months through like CTSO conferences and officer retreats that they would have. However, after the pandemic, when I began serving Kansas HOSA as an officer, we started to hold bi-weekly meetings through Zoom. Zoom actually gave us a platform for us to connect with each other more frequently than we ever would have if it weren't for the pandemic. And because of that, we bonded not only through service leadership as a state officer team, but we were also able to connect with each other rooted in camaraderie. And because of that, we saw significant effects on how we helped Kansas HOSA students come out of the pandemic. As president this year, I truly believe that this change in leadership helped HOSA students come out of the pandemic so strongly. We were able to hold influential leadership conferences despite virtual platforms. And now, because of that leadership, Kansas HOSA is back on its feet. The change in leadership during COVID acted as a sort of foundation for future officer teams. It acted as a foundation for future officer teams, and through consistent outreach by this year's officer team over the summer and this semester, we were able to bring back our membership numbers significantly. So during our fall conference in 2020, we had approximately 250 students attend. This was our first virtual conference that we ever had. 1 year later in 2021, this past October, the same conference had well over 450 students attend because of the outreach and work we did over the summer. We were able to bring 12 new chapters on board in Kansas, 2 of which are new on the collegiate level and 2 at the middle school level as well. And in May of 2021, at the end of last year's academic school year, our overall membership numbered around 650 students. And as of yesterday, we have a total of 930 current members in Kansas HOSA. And so because of this, the leadership team definitely stepped up, and we were able to change the way that we led Kansas HOSA, not just through HOSA events and state conferences, but also the fact that we were so bonded with each other due to those Zoom meetings. I never actually got to meet my first state officer team in person. I still haven't met some of them actually. But because of that, we were able to come back stronger, and we are on a good path for our spring leadership conference in March. Thank you.
Thank you.
And representing Skills USA from Labette County High School is President Laith Smith.
Welcome.
Thank you and good morning. May I approach the board and pass out some pamphlets just to give you some extra information?
Give them to Peggy over there, and she'll take care of that for you.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. As said, my name is Laith Smith, and I am a senior in Labette County High School. I'm in their electronics program, which also means I have joined Skills USA, and that had led me to become the president of the state officer team. Skills USA is a student organization that is focused on empowering its members to become world-class workers, leaders, and responsible American citizens. We do this by partnering with businesses and industries to find out what essential skills they want in their future workforce. Then we connect across the nation to middle schools, high schools, and colleges to develop a framework essential for the development of these well-sought-after skills. Then our members harness these skills by going to leadership workshops, competing in competitions, depending on their technical classes, and being leaders in their community. With over 400,000 members nationwide, we felt the staggering impact of COVID-19, especially here in Kansas. Our membership dropped from its record high to a massive decline. Many of our industry partners were hit as well, causing all operations to come to a grinding stop. But as operations were slow to start, we took time to carefully create a plan to rebuild whilst thinking of our members from the very beginning. We created online workshops and invented a whole new curriculum to give students a means of leadership development and growth that can be done virtually. The workshops encourage members to support their local community by doing community services, big and small, such as supporting a local charity or even just offering their time to clean classrooms and lunch tables. After doing this for a while, businesses started up again and our partners decided to hop back on to support us and our members. With this renewed support, Skills USA Kansas arranged to do a virtual conference, including competitions such as welding, masonry, and culinary arts, inventing a new way for our members to compete and be recognized for their work, bringing a sense of normalcy back to our students and members in a changed and unusual time. Our previous state officers and myself even held our state leadership conference. With pushback from schools and low numbers, we were still able to create an impact in the members of our state's local chapters, an impact that they will take on to their schools and local communities. With the success of this conference, partners and faculty of Skills USA are now planning and working towards making our next state conference surpass any previous conference before, planning more competitions, and hopefully recognizing many more great and talented students in CTE programs. All this planning and adapting is to help represent our members and students of Kansas CTEs. Even tomorrow, we are meeting with the governor and our state representatives to communicate about Skills USA and to promote it alongside career and technical student organizations. Even after all that Skills USA has been through, we are still dedicated to our members. Skills USA has come out strong, but our members and students have come out stronger. Again, I am Laith Smith from Skills USA. Thank you for giving me your time.
Thank you very much.
And presenting our final CTSO president, representing TSA from Buseau Linwood High School, is President Abby Auten.
Welcome.
Good morning. Out of all of the events that I attend as a state officer, this is truly my favorite one. I have come to Citizenship Day for 3 years now, and it is truly my favorite event. But good morning. My name is Abby Auten, and I'm a senior at Buseau Linwood High School and the president of Technology Student Association, not only for the state, but for my local chapter as well. TSA strives for all of its members to learn leadership and teamwork skills. However, these past few years have been unique and quite difficult for everyone in their own ways. TSA has given an outlet for many of our members to focus on. After discussing with a few members and other officers, I have found that there were a few skills and situations that have helped them through this pandemic. Through the pandemic, just my chapter alone has lost many of our members, and our recruitment skills and strategies have not been working how they used to. Just in my chapter, we lost 50% of our current members for this school year, and we had no new freshmen stay past our first meeting. This is very unfortunate because TSA has a lot to offer, and usually during our club fair for the freshmen and new students, we get a whole new group of students to join TSA every year. However, there was a few more impacts we had. As a chapter and state, we had to change many of our conferences and events to virtual or completely cancel the events. In my chapter, we have a few fundraising events, and we had to alter one of them to be more of a drive-through event, and the other one we had to require masks. However, TSA has taught its members so many skills to take advantage of through this pandemic. For example, members already need a strong work ethic to complete our projects in such a little amount of time. And this strong work ethic has transferred from TSA into the education system for all of our members to complete their homework and assignments even through this pandemic. TSA is also all about STEM, but mostly we focus on technology. I would like to think of myself and other TSA members as technology inclined. These skills have helped members through our many virtual classes and online platforms that have replaced the standard paper assignments and in-person methods. This added technology has assisted with the communication that needs to happen with our chapters. Other students may have distanced themselves from teachers and other students, but TSA members have connected with students and teachers even more than we have ever done before. We have even opened up our meetings to help TSA members adjust to high school and talk about any worries that they have had during this pandemic, since we are such a tight-knit group. Lastly, adapting to change is one of the biggest things you can ever learn in TSA. In 2020, instead of totally canceling our state conference, we decided to change it to a ranking system and changed everything from a normal state conference into our own Kansas way of doing things. So instead of just completely canceling every state conference, we've tried to change them to more virtual platforms and done it our own way to get through and still offer a way for members to still compete in all of their events. As the president of Kansas and Basler Linwood TSA, I have had to change almost every aspect of TSA for our members. My school officer team and I have been able to keep a strong core group, but it is very difficult to expand our chapter. Although this pandemic has been hard on us all, I have seen many TSA members take charge and use the leadership skills and other soft skills learned in TSA to push themselves and others to learn more about the world around us. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak with you again this year. I hope all of you have an amazing day at our Citizenship Day. I hope to see you all soon. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Chair Porter, if it's okay, I'll have the officers stand up here so they can approach the microphone and answer any questions. We'll do it in a somewhat awkward fashion, I'm sure, as they decide who's going to answer which question, unless you call out the organization that you'd like to have answer.
We're a little awkward ourselves, so that's okay. The question I'm going to ask is a little complicated. One of our goals is that each student have an individual plan of study so that you look at your skills and your interest and make decisions about what's going to happen later on. So I'd like for each of you to respond. Tell us where you are in that process, and then I'm not interested in where you're going to go to school next year, because everybody says, "What's your goal?" I'm going to go to KU. KU's not a life plan; it's a way to get to that life plan, and so I'd like for you to envision, if you're still on that plan, where do you see yourself in 10 years? So I'd like for, and then I will shut up and let my colleagues ask questions. But I do want to say one other thing. I was especially impressed with people that want to give cookies to the elderly, and remember that several of us fit in that category. Okay, whoever wants to start.
Sure, I can go ahead. So just my educational journey real quick. I would say I'm most interested in economics and kind of foreign policy. So I was actually kind of attracted initially to Business Professionals of America, not for the business aspects so much, but for some of the connections that I could make and for the election process. So the actual, at state, we run an election where you have a campaign manager, you get to campaign, you design your materials, and I really thought that sounded super interesting, and that kind of resonated with my interest in public policy. So it's also really cool to be here right now and seeing all of you guys. But in 10 years, I would say I hope to have some experience abroad, maybe working for an embassy in Latin America. But I'm envisioning probably a job in public service or government.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So my career goal is to help farmers with their finances. So that will be either working in a bank or maybe running my own firm. But farmers have come to me and we go through everything and see how I can help them save money and stuff like that to kind of help for the future. And so in 10 years, hopefully I am working at a bank somewhere or I'm running my own firm and probably living on a farm somewhere in Kansas and giving back to the community that I live in. So, thank you very much. Thank you.
For me, I've always been focused on like acts of service. So I'm actually very interested in medicine, and I love the fact that it has this aspect where you're able to challenge yourself while also helping others. Originally, when I was younger, I wanted to go into the computer sciences because I knew it was a growing field that could really help out in many aspects of the world. But I realized that the reason why I enjoyed it was because of the impact that you have on people. And I realized that that impact can be made through medicine. And so in 10 years, I hope to see myself as a cardiologist where I'm able to help out people. And I want to tie that into business by opening my own practice in which I can provide help to different hospitals outpatient. Thank you.
Originally, when I was in second grade, I wanted to be a teacher, but I also wanted to be rich. And we all know, yeah, I had my dreams. I also realized I didn't like children, so yeah, that put a kink in the works. But I soon figured out that I wanted to become a biomedical engineer. And actually, through TSA, I got to design and create a prosthetic, which made me fall in love with biomedical engineering even more. So hopefully in 10 years, I will either be working with prosthetics or some other sort of biomedical engineering subject and research, just to design and engineer something to help others.
And be rich.
Yes. I mean, I'm not doing it for the money, but it helps.
So actually the pandemic really cleared up my career path for me. During COVID, I talked about earlier in my speech how my state officer team and I bonded. After that experience, I decided to write an officer tribute as a song. So I composed a song and performed it to my officer team, and it actually got recognized and featured at the International Leadership Conference. But through that, I found a passion for trying to understand how music has an effect on cognitive sciences. And so going into college, I hope to major in cognitive sciences with a minor in music so that I can study interdisciplinary studies by linking both of those two very different fields of study together. In 10 years, the field of healthcare is very vast. I have no idea where I'm going when it comes to what my career path will be. But hopefully through studying and majoring in cognitive science, I will have opened a lot of different doors to whatever career that I choose to take. So that's the plan.
So like everyone, I'm sure my idea of a career path has changed numerous times since I was young. I wanted to be a singer. That was my big dream. And then I kind of got more realistic as I grew older. So right now my plan is to attend a university in the Northeast and study criminal psychology. And that's just due to some personal experiences. But through FBLA, I have already established so many amazing connections with adults and with my peers my own age. For example, one of my mentors at my local chapter I met through FBLA, and she has all these connections in the Northeast and has already connected me with those people to further my career path, which I just am so thankful for. Also, since I was in 8th grade, I have worked at our local pharmacy in Kingman, so I've got to watch how that aspect of the medical field has changed through the pandemic, how the pharmacists and even the technicians have had to adapt and react, and with COVID testing and with the vaccines and all the things like that. So I've had some training in that area, and that's also an area that really interests me. So I would like to continue that through college and through my life. In 10 years, I hope to be working for the government, hopefully for the FBI, perhaps as a criminal profiler, something like that, but also keeping these hobbies and these connections that I've established through this organization and through my experiences in my lifetime. So that's my plan.
So I've been always fascinated with technology. It's made life so much simpler for everyone. And so I've always wanted to delve deep into that. And I also love learning. So I've always wanted to dual doctorate in both electrical engineering and computer engineering because my mother is a doctor and I always wanted to be a doctor too, but I can't do blood. So so I've always wanted to make my parents proud and be on high as a level as them, and so I always want to do it in my own way. So I'll probably still be in college doing a mastering program. So I want a dual doctorate in electrical engineering, computer engineering.
All right, and just like TSA, I wanted to become a teacher, but now I'm more envisioning being myself in the public administration field. So anything that comes with a public administration degree would be great for me. I'm highly interested in local government, but I think one thing that I really learned that I am is some sort of educator, and I love constantly learning about communities. More importantly, just back 2 years ago, or just last year, I began to do a STAR event, which is a thing that I talked about in my speech. And it was about saying yes to FCS, which is saying yes to the family and consumer sciences field as a teacher. There, I really got to learn about learning your students and really seeing how they're taught best, and seeing what lessons are best for them. But it really opened my eyes up into the whole field of most likely communicating with other people, and really being the best teacher towards someone else. So, if in a couple of years, let's say 10 years, I'm working here in the city of Topeka, but not necessarily at the state office of any sort, you'd most likely see me maybe working at the city of Topeka's municipal building. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, questions? Betty?
I really don't have a question. I have a comment, and it is to thank each of you. Listening to you today was so refreshing. Um, you're showing the strength and the resilience, the very fiber of what we hope to be made of. And there are days when what we do can seem very tiring and maybe not quite as fulfilling. But to hear from such a group of dedicated, focused young students, it touches my heart, and I just want to express my gratitude to each of you and to wish you all the best. Thank you for your presentations.
Ben?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I again want to thank you for being here. Have a fellow Blue Dragon here as well, which is always fun to know and to share that. But what is my question to you? And what are what's been the best part of your K-12 experience? I know you're at Hachichuco now, but what has been the best part? What's the one thing that you think that your school has prepared you for the most for what you guys walk through what you're going to do, or what you think you're going to do, what your plan is? What's one of the best things or the best opportunities that your school has provided you? Not just your organizations. I know you here represent organizations, but your home school to prepare you for this.
Okay, so I'm from Kingman, which is actually his own district. So I think one of the most significant things from my K-12 experiences, we're a small school, right? Our high school and our middle school, I want to say, is maybe 300 kids max. So with that comes a lot of limited opportunities. However, I'm very grateful and fortunate to say that Kingman has taken those limited opportunities and really expanded upon them and used them to their best ability. We are really focused on our individual plans of study, and we have a lot of resources through Hutch Community College and through Pratt Community College, and even just through our online learning center to allow each individual student to really focus on what they're wanting to do and use their own time to benefit their own futures. So I'm really thankful for that. Filling out these billions, it seems, college applications, it's like, what AP classes have you had? What IB classes? All of these things. And because of the limited opportunities, I haven't been able to experience all of those particular things, but I have been able to utilize the resources that Kingman offers to the best of my ability. And so I'm really thankful for that because they really are focused on each individual student and will do anything and everything in their power to benefit their individual plan of study. So, thank you.
So like I said earlier, I'm from Baser-Linwood High School, which something really different from a lot of schools is Baser has Innovation Academy, which many of you have heard about that. But it's a project-based learning class that we take that takes anything you're interested in and you make it a project. But it's more than just a project. It's life skills. It's project management. I took an internship through it, and I actually connected it to my prosthetics project for TSA, but it's really just given me a space to learn what I want to, figure out what I want to do in life, and have an actual time in my day to figure it out, and not just after school trying to manage it around everything else. Innovation Academy has also given me a lot of people skills. There's a lot of presentations we're just thrown into at the beginning of our class period, and they're like, oh, hey, we have all these people coming in today, and you guys are all going to be talking. And we're like, what? Okay. But our showcase is one of the biggest events we've had, and it's just where we can talk to a whole lot of people, and all of those personable skills that I've learned are so amazing through that, and it's definitely prepared me for college and future careers.
Sometimes you have to make choices in life, and this is one of those choices we're going to have to ask right now. We can stay on time or we can't. And the consequences of us not staying on time is that you don't get to eat on time later on. So at this time, if that's okay with my colleagues, I'd like for a couple of more of you to answer that question. Instead of everybody having to answer every question, if a couple more of you could answer that question, then we'll go on to Michelle, who has the next question. Or you can all answer it and we'll just eat at 1 o'clock.
I am in the Olathe School District, and I think, as many of you guys know, we have this thing called 21st Century Academies. And those academies are basically programs that allow students to learn more about the career field that they're interested in and get real-life experience. So I am in the Medical Professions Academy at Olathe North, and being in a room with like-minded students who are so driven to the same goal of academic excellence and being the best in their field is amazing because that's inspiring for you. And also the resources that we have available to us are resources that usually many students don't see until they're in their junior or senior year of an undergraduate degree. And so I think that that has been the best experience in my K-12 experience, was being in that Medical Professions Academy. I still am. And being in that Medical Professions Academy and being able to have access to those resources and access to those students that help you understand your goals and chase after your goals while you also help them. And we built a great community around each other.
It'll be short. We don't mind eating late.
So for me, my school, there was 250 students K through 12. Very small, very small high school. And so it was just a little community in our school. And for me, my biggest impact were my teachers. Teachers, kindergarten, all the way up until now in college. I still remember Mrs. Hanson in preschool and everything, and the little cleanup song we had to sing. And just throughout high school, the guidance of my teachers, not only from the education that they had to teach us, but also the real life talks we'd have in class. My math teacher, probably, I had the most real life talks with him about the future and college and everything like that. But for me, it was my teachers, because they helped guide me through to where I'm at today.
I'll be super quick, but I feel like I needed to give a quick plug to the International Baccalaureate Diploma program at my school. So I'm in Shawnee Mission, and my school is actually one of the only schools in the district to have this program, and I know there's only a couple other ones in all of Kansas, but I would just really, I don't know, I just think it was a great experience. It still is. It focuses on kind of an interdisciplinary education and has a lot smaller class size, so I just feel like I've been able to connect with my teachers better, and it's just been an amazing thing. I know that your budgets are probably tighter than ever, and I don't quite understand how much control you have over any of the programs in the schools, but I would definitely recommend looking at that IB program and trying to expand it as much as you can.
Thank Thank you very much. Michelle,
All right.
go ahead.
I think one of the biggest assets to Pittsburgh High School is our performing arts program. And that definitely is a little out of way compared to what I would like to do in life. But through performing arts, I not only have been able to thrive in communities such as debate and theater, but also I met some of my best friends through this program. And like the smaller schools in Kansas, I don't think we're too small, we're pretty average, but because we're not in like a bigger school system, such as like in Overland Park area, we were able to make a community within our programs where it's super tight knit. Like Pittsburgh High School definitely has gone through a lot of tough obstacles throughout the past few years. We lost a really important director to our hearts, the theater director at our high school. We've gone through a lot of trials when it comes to COVID and how those policies affected us. But I think the biggest thing is the community that I was provided through our performing arts, where we were all passionate about what we were doing, as well as being able to create that tight-knit community that we're going to be connected with for the rest of our lives, the way that I see it. So, yeah.
You know, it's interesting you talk about size. I represent 70 school districts, and Pittsburgh's one of them. I think of those 70 school districts, if Pittsburgh is not the biggest, it's really close to being the biggest of those. Okay, anybody else?
I'd just like to say quickly, my school has a system where we get 7 hours of the day and we get to choose our own schedule. And that ability allows us to just be able to go and experience many different things and try out what types of education, what types of careers we'd like to go into. I know that we have a big electives program with many fine arts and performing arts, and that has really helped a lot of people that I know with mental health and just friends and just getting a family. And then there's the career and technical side and just the ability to choose that. And I've seen people find their future jobs and just connect with teachers and just have the ability to experience everything with having the ability to choose what we do in school and what we learn is, I think, the best thing that our school has and offers.
All right, and I should be the last one. I think the most important thing that I've basically have accustomed to in my district is that it's pretty flexible and adaptable for each student, that there's so many programs available that can really venture in depending on the type of student. For example, I think I consider myself an extracurricular student. I both like taking college classes, but also really enjoy my extracurriculars in order to have that type of relationship with my teachers where I'm able to do both. But then there's also other students that they can take advantage of other things. For example, there's also a lot of tech students that we have at our high school that are able to take advantage of Washburn Tech. And there's pretty much ranges, but I feel like one big thing is that each student is able to find their own little niche and thing that they can really enjoy at our school, and most importantly our school district. So I think any program that they had available that teaches them about having a career and just life planning in general, it really helps for all school districts. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Michelle.
Chairman Porter, I look forward to this. I know you said you look forward to this. I look forward to this every year as well. Sitting down and when it's a big room, a ballroom, and we get to meet with students all across the state. I heard earlier, I think someone said they had some connections with parts of Kansas connected with another part of Kansas through this through the COVID and through Zooming and all that. I think it sounds like a lot of connections being made. That I was excited about, because I thought, oh, if I could just take this back and they could learn so much from this part of Kansas or that part of Kansas, I think you can all learn from each other. And I loved hearing about that, those connections that you made. It sounds like in Kingman, a part-time job outside, you still have a passion for that. You want to carry that into the future. It sounds like that you made a lot of connections through all this. And I think that's so important. Branching out, reaching out to others, and learning from each other. And then that's how you learn about some of your passions, because someone was just talking about in Olathe, you're in the same field and going. It's kind of like I have a son that's in the CAPS program in Blue Valley, and he is in with like-minded business students, and he gets the opportunity to go out and work in shadow in different businesses. And I think that is so important to get those experiences, and then you'll find out what you may like by working through that and working through those connections. So thank you again for your time and your presentation, and I look forward to lunch.
Thank you.
Yeah, so look, meeting with you this afternoon or whenever we get there is what really one of the highlights of what we do. We hear all the time, kids are different than they used to be. I agree with that because I think you guys are smarter and better than I was at your age, and I think, which is not usually the message that is delivered when that statement is made. But I continue to be impressed with students. We meet with several student groups throughout the year, and one of the things that we'll be doing this afternoon or whenever and we'll try to be on time, is that we have a series of questions that we like to ask students, because who better knows what's going on in schools and what the issues are than students? And we hear from a lot of adults. But one of the most valuable things we hear is students. So we will be meeting with you this afternoon. We will meet with other student groups. Ann Ma, raise your hand, Ann, is the chairman of what we call our Student Voice Committee, and she will instruct us which questions to ask, and then we will compile those and use those as a very valuable data set for decisions we make in the future, because your voice is extremely important. And as I've already said, and I'll say it again, our country, our state, our nation is in good hands when we have people like you moving into leadership positions to take over for us. Thank you so much. Appreciate what you do, and we're really excited about meeting with you again later today. Now, I had warned Stacy that I was going to ask him about Educators Rising, because that's something that we're all interested in, but I'm not going to ask that question because of the time. But I would say that we have to look at some regulations in order to, because there are regs about who can be a CTSO, and I will be asking for a volunteer from the board to be a part of that process that Stacy will put together in the near future. So at break time or something, if you're interested, would you please let me know, and we'll proceed from there instead of I'd ask you to give the Cliff's Note version, but I think that because of time and because the students will want to eat at some time this afternoon.
Yeah, we'll dismiss the students. I will provide some information for the follow-up packet for the board to consider, and then look forward to working with the board in scaling CTSO opportunities for other organizations.
Thank you so much. Good luck, folks.
Thank you.
And now it is time for us to receive the annual report from SEAC. Is Brian here? I don't mind going over time talking to him. Certainly mind going over just to say welcome, sir.
Thank you, Chair Porter. Chair Porter, members of the board, Commissioner Watson, my name is Brian Dempsey. I'm an assistant director on the Special Education and Title Services team, and I have the privilege of introducing the leadership for the Special Education Advisory Council in order for them to discuss their annual report. All of you know Heath Piney, who is our past chair. Joining us today are Jennifer King, the current chair, and Tricia Backman, the chair-elect. I think at this point, I will turn it over to Jennifer.
I'm sorry, I don't know if you already did this slide or not. I just know about sound, so I'll do it again if not.
Well,
Keith is not available to be here today, so it'll just be Trisha and I. I'm Jennifer King, I'm the current chair, and then Trisha Backman is our chair-elect. And I guess next slide then. Can you change the slide? Thank you.
there we go.
Thanks so much. The Special Education Advisory Council is comprised of 21 members who either applied for the position or they were nominated to the council. And this year we continue to be able to fulfill all of our roles with quality candidates. And we also were able to achieve representation from all board regions, while ensuring that the majority of our members were either an individual with a disability or the parent of an individual with a disability. So SEAC membership represents parents of a child with a disability, parent of a child with giftedness, individuals with disabilities, general education teacher, special education teacher, representatives of higher institutions, institutions of higher education, state education officials, local education officials from public schools, administrators of programs for exceptional children, other state agencies that are involved in the financing or the delivery related services, private schools, vocational community or business organizations that are concerned with the provision of transition services, state juvenile correction agency, state adult correction agency, and state agency responsible for foster care. So of our 21 members, some of these roles obviously have more than one person representing them. And then 14 of our members do help us meet that majority rule currently. In addition to those voting members, SEAC membership includes ex officio representation from the official Parent Training and Information Center for Kansas, Kansas State Board of Education, and the official Protection and Advocacy Center for Kansas.
Hi, I'm Trish Backman, and I'm going to go over the 2020 and 2021 SEAC's year in review. We have a lot of accomplishments that we've made throughout the year with all the different subcommittees and committee meetings that we've had. One of the big topics that has been on our agenda has been talking about personnel shortages and special education areas with teacher licensure, making sure we get highly qualified people in the classrooms to work with the populations of our students who have special needs. And then we've also had a committee work on the formation of the membership to fill any empty seats that we had on our committee. And that's what Jennifer was referring to. All of our seats have been filled for this year. So we feel like that was very successful. And we got qualified people from across the state to serve in those roles. We've received and reviewed the Navigating Change document, and we went through all the different areas of that. We talked about the gating criteria for both hybrid, remote, and on-site learning opportunities and how areas will be addressed on individualized education plans for students who we service. And we wanted to make sure that we definitely took good looks at what the secondary transition services and requirements are going to be, because with all the impacts of COVID and changes that we've had with the different settings, we created a subcommittee, and a family-friendly document was created by that subcommittee. It's posted on the Kansas State Department of Education website. And within that document, there are a bunch of hyperlinks so that parents can just get on their phone and zoom onto the hyperlink and find the resources and the contact people that they need, so that there's no gaps and holes, whether kids are at home doing hybrid or in-person learning at school. If you could go to the next slide, please. SEAC and SICC Joint Committee met, and Jennifer, I believe, served on this committee, and they went through a very intensive review of early childhood least restrictive environment data trends. They wanted to make sure that all of the students who are having their needs provided for them from the earliest ages through when they graduate from high school are all making sure that they're being served in integrative and inclusive environments where it's not children isolated with special needs and they have their same age peers to role model after. And regardless of the age, we wanted to make sure that the data trends were following what they need to be and looked at any gaps or any areas where we might need to address concerns that are happening in the state of Kansas. We had a legislative session discussion on homeless data, special education funding, teacher shortage that's happening across the state of Kansas, and the ESSER and EANS funds that we are talking about that are affecting and impacting education as we speak, especially in special education. We know homeless data is looking a little bit different right now because of the CARES Act and rent assistance. And we do expect the data that we're looking at for this year to look a little different than the data we'd seen in the past, and even compared to what we might see for data next year. So we are keeping our eyes on that as a committee. The SPP and APR requirements for the fiscal years of 2020 through 2025 were looked at, and Laura Jurgensen was serving on that committee, and they came up with several indicators that they addressed very specific topics. All of that information as well is published on the Kansas Department of Education website. And we have meeting notes where each of the indicators are talking about the summary of the proposed changes, which years that we're addressing, and then how these changes are going to be met. So those are easily accessible on the Department of Education's website. We also provided feedback to the KSDE SETS team. They have been working on documents for transition for parents. And I think I kind of jumped ahead a little bit here, ongoing from previous years, but making sure that we made a parent-friendly document for everybody. It kind of linked to what we were talking about before with the website links and the QR codes. And then if you want to go to the next slide, please. As has been a topic in all education settings, looking at administrative licensure and teacher licensure to fill the empty seats. There were subcommittees created on both how we can create pathways to the teacher licensure, and then what we can do to make sure highly qualified teachers who are wanting to go into special ed administration, as well as administration seats that are being vacated currently due to retirement and resignation culture. We wanted to make sure that our state is on top of the trends to put highly qualified people in the positions to serve the needs of the districts in our state. There's a document called The Routes to the Classroom, which I think is absolutely beautiful, very colorful. That is also on the Department of Education website. It gives a lot of really great details about how teachers can advance in their careers and promote from within, and how we can get people who are highly qualified professionals into the seats in the classroom, coming alongside with veteran teachers. We also talked about gating criteria, meeting the needs of 18 to 20 students, because there are students who, because of impact of COVID, have possibly had some regression or had some skills or services that they weren't accessing on a regular basis like they would had we been meeting face-to-face or in person. So we're also looking at the impact of homeless students and what kind of services we need to be providing because of issues that have been created due to COVID. Technical assistance availability and adaptability, since we have had so many shifts to hybrid and remote settings, we wanted to make sure that we're looking at how that's impacting special education. And then the last topic, which is a subcommittee that I'm serving on, and we're going to present to you later in this month, is the graduation requirement task force. And what we're doing on that task force is looking at several different areas of interest to look at what we are doing right now for students to obtain their high school diploma. We are looking at 3 subcommittees. One is credits that would be needed to be added for our kids to be work or college ready to go out into those settings and be not only just successful, but productive in their pursuits and in their futures. And then we also are looking at how can we give credits based on mastery or competencies that students can attain, as opposed to merely just letter grades. And then the third qualities we're looking at are what we're calling value-added diplomas, and what are skills and abilities that kids are out doing as service with exposures and experiences in their communities and in the workplace that we could possibly give credit for, so that we can help our students be well-rounded, and so that we can support the motto of our state as we lead the world in the success of every student.
Patricia has highlighted some great accomplishments of the SEAC committee as a whole, as well as mentioning some great things that we're doing right now and will continue to work on. But then there are other things that we plan to continue to do for the future. There are some legislative considerations for the 2022 session, which and then quarterly updates will continue to be provided. That was something we started last year, I believe, starting in the fall of 2020. That SEAC would continue to provide quarterly updates to the State Board of Education in addition to this annual review. And we'll open it up now for any questions that you have for us.
Are there questions? Jim?
Now it is. Thank you. As representative from the board to SEAC, it's been a real pleasure over these number of years to work with them, and the professionalism, the dedication, and just the hard work that these folks do is to be commended and honored. Thank you for your service. Trish, I've got to say to you, we're working you hard. Tricia is one of our chairs on the graduation task force, and she and her team have brought a great perspective that, quite frankly, when we started, wasn't in our on our windshield. So thank you very much for that. Bert does a great job. The team here at KSDE is just front and center, ready to work and ready to provide the support and those things that are necessary to help the field. SEAC itself is not a rubber stamp task force. They are passionate and without a doubt ready to ask questions and ready to get to the bottom of whatever needs to be done and do it right. So we have a great task force, we have a great SEAC, and I think the two leaders that we're listening to today stepped right in there when Bert couldn't be here and have done a great job. So thank you for what you've done. I look forward to continuing the conversation and the interaction with SEAC for the graduation task force. And like I said, it's opened my eyes and made us much more aware of just how important it is that we serve all students, not just the general education regular graduation. And I will commend the state of Kansas as one of the leaders in graduation rates for special education students. And I'd attribute some of that, quite a bit of that, to the leadership that we have at KSDE, to SEAC, and certainly to the teachers and all the special ed advocates that are in our state. It's really been a pleasure to work with you guys, and I've learned so much, so thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Janet?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions. My first question is, we've been informed that, I've been informed by many people that our students lost a lot during this COVID mess that we've been going through by not being at school and doing it virtually. And I heard that special ed students were impacted even more. So have you been doing anything special to help them, or, because I know this is really a challenge.
Well, I can talk about what we're doing. I'm in a very unique situation because I provide services for the small 1% of the state of Kansas in the Department of Corrections. So I work at the Kansas Juvenile Correctional Complex. And I know that we aren't the only ones doing this. I live in a town that is a smaller district, but I'm right by Topeka. And I know my teacher friends in all of those districts are doing the same thing. But one of the things that we're doing is we jumped in head first when we got our students back face to face, and we have been doing a lot of testing and collecting data to find out exactly where the students are. And then we've been doing programs and doing a lot of a recovery of skills so that we don't leave our kids behind and just jump into the next Common Core standard, but we get them the skills that they need so that they can master the competencies. And I think the shift in making sure that kids are mastering skills and focusing on that has been a very big push. Every teacher that I talk to in large and small districts, but we're using data. Everything is data driven, and we are putting intensives in place. We're using a lot of peer mentoring, and we're doing what we need to do to fill the gaps so that students continue to succeed and not just survive education, but thrive in our state.
Thank you. I just was thinking when you said that how much I admire all of you, because teachers are my heroes. I mean, I really think teachers, but you guys are superheroes, working with special ed students. So I do thank you for that. My second question is, we of course know about the teacher shortage and the shortage of everything. And my concern is the shortage of special ed, not only teachers, but parents, and how this has impacted even following mandates. Because, I mean, if they don't have them, they don't have them. I mean, so how are you handling this?
So we as professionals, of course, in our current jobs, as well as on the committee, we share those concerns. That's definitely not something that's isolated anywhere. It's felt in every community across the state. But it isn't really something that CX specifically can address necessarily, because we can't, I don't know, if we could make more people, we would absolutely do that. But our capacity is to advise districts about special education areas, and staffing is more global. And I know KSDE has really addressed that as a whole, but CX specifically, I don't think we have taken on that.
Well, I thought maybe you just heard some of the concerns and how they were handling it. But anyway, thank you.
Well, I feel like the document that was worked on and all the routes that have been presented to the classroom, instead of there being just very narrow path to get there, there are multiple avenues that people can explore to become educators. And the paths that we've given, they really celebrate the experiences that people may have had in other settings, since we have people leaving their places of employment and they want to do something meaningful. So we're doing the best we can as individual members in the education fields. But like Jennifer said, CX specifically we aren't doing any recruiting, but we definitely do, as individual teachers, recruit as many people as we can into this profession.
Well, once again, thank you, because you guys are doing an amazing job. So I really appreciate everything you do. Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions? If not, we thank you very much for what you do. Thank you, Brian, for making the presentation today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item of business is continue the discussion related to the substitute license requirement. And if we could pull up the recommended motion. Now, we had a lot of discussion about this yesterday. I'm going to make a suggestion that you all can feel comfortable ignoring. This proposal was put together by and approved by several organizations, teacher organizations, administrative organizations, school board organizations. And that relationship is somewhat tenuous. And I think it's important that we keep that, we keep the focus of cooperation together. So I know there were some questions about age yesterday. There were some questions about deadlines and things like this. I would like to suggest, and again, you don't have to do, this is, we all have 10% of this corporation, and we can vote however we want to. But I would suggest that we pass this as unamended, and then gather data, and by May, actually have that data presented to us so we can see, like June 1st was interesting. We will know that by then. If schools are going to have to go past that, we'll know what the potential information is related to summer school at that time, and then revisit that at that time to see whether or not any adjustment is necessary, but make that adjustment based on data as opposed to what we think may happen. And so I would suggest that we do that, but nobody has to do that. This morning, that was interesting. We were having this discussion at the table where I was out at KSB, and one of the superintendents at my table was talking about the fact that he could solve his substitute problem almost immediately because there's a medical facility in his district, and there are a lot of spouses, adult, spouses that are well over 18 years old that have some experience that would be willing to substitute, but maybe not have the 60 college hours. So that could be a solve. So anyway, that's my suggestion. Like everything else, you can do what you want to, but Jim.
Mr. Porter, I agree with you that looking at the recommended motion, I'm thinking of the many groups, representative groups, that had to be a part of that. And to honor that, I can see some of them giving up a lot of things that are close to their heart. And I think it would be a mistake on our part to try to amend or correct or make it better or make it not, or whatever you might come from, point. So I would be happy to make the motion that due to the unprecedented shortage of substitute teachers available during the COVID pandemic, I move to authorize the emergency declaration that allows the Kansas State Department of Education to issue a temporary emergency authorized license to those applicants who meet the following criteria: must be at least 18 years old, have a high school diploma, must undergo and pass the KSDE background check, and must provide verification from a hiring education system's chief executive officer that they are willing to hire that person as a substitute teacher. Such authorization shall be from January 13, 2022 through June 1 of 2022. And I do want to express my thanks and appreciation for bringing this recommendation forward.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to the motion? Betty seconds the motion. Jean?
I just had a request that perhaps we really encourage districts who utilize this to provide information to us through the department or directly, because I'd like to see how well it works within districts, and to see what issues or benefits they've experienced with it. So before May, so that we can consider that as well.
Okay, thank you. Ben?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Personally, I'd like to see July 1 or June 30th just to be kind of wrap up with the actual year to coincide with calendars. But in lieu of that, I'm not going to submit a amendment or anything like that to it. And I will be supporting it, not let the enemy of the perfect be enemy of the good. And moving forward, this was in conversations I had this morning with board presidents and members that I had this morning. This opens up some pathways for paras to fill in some of the gaps, to provide some stop gaps that staff that they already have that couldn't do it before, but now they can I mean, not necessarily that you want to, but can fill in that gap. But I guess personally, I'd like to see it to June 30th, just to coincide with the calendar year, but I'm not gonna jeopardize the motion, and appreciate all the work that everybody went into this. Thank you.
Dina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Although I may have added some things, written it differently, I do know that it's a compromise issue as well. And so I respect that and will support it. But as Jean had suggested, I hope that districts will follow through and let us know what works, what doesn't work, and what they've done to help facilitate individuals who were not specifically educated to be teachers to actually how they can help them fit into the expectations. And whether the date is an issue, and if they see it as an issue for the fact that there may be summer school issues or having to have closed school, and so they had to extend the number of days that they needed to be available for education of students. I hope that in May, if we need to extend the date, we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to acknowledge some of the things that haven't been part of this conversation yet. It's really important that we go into this with our eyes wide open as to what we're doing. We're being asked to consider this measure as a last resort, that this is essentially an emergency in these schools because of the pandemic. And some of the comments that I have heard from teachers are very angry. They feel very devalued, and they don't feel that this is certainly not a testament to their professionalism. I want those teachers to hear the words that my fellow board members are saying. This is to help you guys out because we are in a tight spot, and schools, unfortunately, are asked to provide so much more than education. We need to keep the doors open so that kids have access to services, so that they have access to their teachers. And when those teachers can't be there, we need to make sure that there's someone to help fill those classrooms, as we talked about yesterday. So I will be supporting this, but I really want to give a nod to all of our educators who have taught through this pandemic. I know it's been a really hard time. I really hope that we can do this to help keep our schools open. I think it's very important, but we appreciate you and we acknowledge you as professionals and the work that has gone into your career. I don't want to diminish that with this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Jean.
I just wanted to also acknowledge the hard work and the expertise of our teachers. This motion more expresses the emergency situation that we are in, and hopefully we'll be able to continue having our high standards for teachers and for those who work with students in our systems. But I think everyone should recognize that this is an exceptional situation, and we are doing our best to keep our schools open, to keep our students learning, and to prevent any further learning loss with our students. So I appreciate everybody's efforts on this, and I look forward to hearing how this works out in the districts in May.
Ann.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to piggyback on what Melanie said, because I know for a fact one high school teacher is going to be thrilled. She does not have to spend her plan period every day subbing in another class. So this really is about helping teachers and about helping kids, because there are a lot of kids out there, if we didn't do this, would be home alone, unfed, and not able to get any help in learning. And if in a high school, for example, 1 hour a day, they're with somebody who doesn't know their subject matter, okay. 6 hours a day, they're with somebody who does. So I think it's an emergency situation, and it's to help both the teachers and the kids. And I hope everybody recognizes that we're just doing the best we can to support the folks that we work for.
Commissioner.
Thank you. One, the person standing in front of you, Shane, will make sure we do a deep data analysis of this from the beginning. I think there are lots of things we can learn that not only inform us maybe in May about some short-term things as we don't know what will happen, but maybe even some longer-term things. I just think we're going to get great feedback in an emergency. You know, anytime you have to do something in an emergency, it's temporary, you don't like to do it, but there could be good things we learn from this if we listen and do it well. Shane, if you could go back just a slide or two. One more, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well,
it's the blue one when we get there. It's
there.
the last recommendation.
Sorry.
That's okay, it's those X's that got you. So when we go over this with superintendents, if you pass this on tomorrow at 12:30, there will be other things that we tell them, you know, that has to go into effect other than just the motion. Please know that. You know, there's got to be a certified administrator that oversees this, you know, during the day. You know, it's only valid for that school district. You know, we mentioned some of that. I just wanted you to be aware of that. And last, since we walked out of the state of the state last night, 4 school districts right now that I know of are about to shut the doors. They don't have enough staff to operate. And so you probably see me on the phone. We're trying to work out how, you know, what are the things that we can do to try to help them. That's the tip of the iceberg. You know, I mean, we're just on the front edge of this as we see it. This, I think, will be of help, but please know if we start to see a rolling tide where we just can't do it, I'll be in contact with all of you, and I think it would then be a time to get together with the governor, the president of the Senate, and the Speaker of the House, because we may need to take a look at something broader than this to make sure that we can try to keep schools open. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I agree with everything my colleagues have said. Right after the meeting yesterday, Melanie showed me several of those comments. And this is certainly not an effort to devalue. As a matter of fact, Janet said yesterday that she hated doing this. So do I. I hate that we have to do this. But as Randy said, there are schools that are not going to be open today because they do not have people to be in the classroom, and kids need to be in the classroom where they're safe. So I'm going to support this, and I want to first of all acknowledge and thank those people that are in the classroom right now doing extremely valuable work. The Governor's Council meets Friday of this week. I was contacted by a member of that task force who said she could not be there. She is a classroom teacher, and she couldn't be there because it was more important for her to be in her class with her students. That's the sort of dedication we're talking about. And she wasn't sure that there could be a quality replacement in her classroom if she came to the Governor's Council, and that's a big deal. And so, you know, those are the sorts of people, and I'll not, of course, not mention her name because I don't have permission to do that. But those are the sort of dedicated people that we're dealing with, and we need to do everything that we can, not only to honor and appreciate them, but to encourage others to do the same thing. And I want to again acknowledge the work of the several organizations that worked on this, and I'm guessing that to a person, nobody has this as their first choice. But we have to do everything we can to support students being in school. So one other comment before we vote. Scott told me yesterday, you know, we basically said that the background check takes about a week. There's a caveat to that. If the person doesn't disclose everything, it can take a lot longer. But if there's nothing wrong, it takes about a week to get that done. At this point, since I don't see any other things in the queue, we will vote. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All opposed? And I assure you, Shane, we will need the data, and I'll assure you that we will revisit this when we have that data. And if that's before May, that's okay too.
Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the board. We appreciate it.
Let's reconvene at 10:45. January meeting each year, even though we've already done this, it is by regulations, we have to adopt the dates for the year. And so, is that in our packet there? 7A. So even though we've approved this, a motion would be in order to approve the meeting dates for 2022. Dina and Melanie. Discussion, all in favor, raise your hand. All opposed. At this time, request for travel. Ben?
I have a date change. The ASDAC meeting is now the 19th instead of the 26th. But it's just a date change.
Okay, anything else? If not, a motion would be in order to approve travel. Melanie and Dina. We just switch you around. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, motion carries. Instead of calling out individual reports, if you have a committee report, I noticed that Gene has presented stuff in writing. If you have a committee report, let us know. Tell me and Jim.
Notes about the graduation task force. January 20th is our meeting here in Topeka for the graduation task force. It's our first actual meeting together. I kind of was thinking we'd be Zoom, but the feedback I've received is we got to meet in person. You know, at that meeting of the task force, we will be receiving reports from the subcommittees, and subcommittees will get information back from the group, and then we will have subcommittees will have time to kind of work together. Second part of that is that we are establishing, we're setting dates to visit around the state to for stakeholders and for the general public. When I'm going to be, or Jared or somebody on a task force will be having a meeting in a particular school district, and your district is in that district is in your district, I will make sure that you are invited, but you are always invited, and I will get the list of meetings that we have to you. You're always invited to be part of the meeting, and while you're at the meeting, I hope that you'll join in the conversation. You're invited, encouraged, and ordered to be involved. I think it's going to be important that state board members are, if you can make it. I know you all have other kinds of schedules, and even in some areas, Dina, I realize it might be a long distance, and Jean, and Ben once in a while. But I'm just saying that we're going into a very critical stage. Second, in the next month, I'm going to guess, where I'm going to be with other task force members in front of the legislature. I think it's important that we bring this to them, not just ask and be invited over, but bring it to them. So we'll be setting a date, and we will let you know when that's going to happen. And certainly Ben and Dina will work with you on the details of making that happen. We have a lot of work in front of us, a lot of people to meet, groups to talk to, and to make the state aware of where we're going, but more than just aware, to get their input into the work that we've done to date and what they'd like to see from high school graduates in the future. But it's also a way of building, groups and coalitions, and we'll take this information and we will use the information that we're getting from stakeholders as we move forward. So the last thing I'm going to say is that we have a writing team. We're going to have to write a report at some time, and I haven't found many task force members that really want to write it. But you don't start writing it, and let me say this, in April for the May meeting. So we have a group, the representatives from KSDE led by Jay Scott, are going to be starting the writing process, of which we will be part of that. It's not that they're going to go write it. They've been at all the meetings. They have participated fully, and it will, and more so as they move forward, because they have now that. And we'll be developing an outline. We'll be building the report, because May is when we're supposed to come back. I believe May 10th, something like that. Now, here's a little bit of information. We might be back earlier. We might be back later. Let's not make that a drop dead cliff. Let's make sure we do the work right. So any questions anyone has, I'm happy to address them now.
So we should expect something May-ish.
Yeah, well, the original was that our May meeting, and I'm assuming, Dr. Port, that will be on the Wednesday meeting in May, which I believe is May 10th. And that would be a big part of our meeting. But it's not that anything's going wrong. I'm just sitting here thinking with the leadership team that, we don't want to have a drop dead cliff. We want it to be we want it to be done correctly. And it could be done early. So that's the report I have. Any questions?
Okay, it won't be the second day in May because we'll be the school for the deaf.
We'll be what?
We'll be the school for the deaf.
Oh, well, I didn't realize that. Do you have an agenda planning?
So,
we'll be the night.
We may be here till 10 o'clock
No, we don't want to. No. We want, we'll work on the date.
Okay. Ann?
Thank you. I appreciate, how many of you plan to be at the CTSO talking to kids today? Great. Okay. We have a list of questions. There are about 8 questions on there, like we've done in the past. We'd like to be sure you do I'll give them to you when we get there. Do the first 3 questions and then any of the others that appeal to you. But take some notes, and if you write like I do, we don't want Peggy to have to interpret, but if when you get home you could type up your notes and send them to Peggy, then she'll compile it. If any of you have met with students this year and have not sent me the feedback you got, I'd like to get that, because we've been collecting it all year. We've kind of been this committee now for a year, and I'd like to consolidate what we've learned. I think, Jim, you and, what's her name on here? Oh my gosh. No, well, Melanie did. You might have gone to a conference, and I know Betty went to a conference, maybe TSA in Wichita, and Jim went, and I haven't gotten any feedback from what you got there. And then Janet, I think you were at the education thing. If you have any notes from that, I'd like to get that too, and the questions that you asked, so we can compile this and kind of get a summary of what kids have told us this year. And I appreciate everybody who went to anything with kids. And now that things are starting to meet again, we'll try to get a list to you of conferences that might be coming up in your area. Like I think Skills USA and some of those are going to be coming up. If you could go and maybe meet with some kids, that'd really be helpful. Any questions, you can let me know. Thanks.
Thank you. Janet?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a question for Jim. Is that okay?
Yeah,
okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, Jim, I'd like to know the timeline. If you present, let's say you present it in May, excuse me, what happens after that? I don't think we vote on it the next month. I mean, just tell me what the procedures are, and then when we finally vote, when will it become implemented? Thank you. Is that a simple question?
Efficient and effective way. I'm going to say 3 things. Number 1, we are asking that same question, and at our January meeting, Scott and Craig will be there to give us a legal and legislative report on next steps. So we've asked the same question. Second, it's an interesting question in terms of, as you said, it comes back to us in May. What do we do? Well, I'll give you several options that we've kind of bounced around. One is that the board may want to take this under consideration, not just at one meeting, but several meetings. it might not be something we just do 1 week and, you know, in 1 month and then vote on it the next month. It could be more than that, you know. And then in terms of when we finally vote on the recommendations and approve them, what happens next? That's what we're going to find out from them, because we don't know, I don't know right now how much authority we have or how much authority the legislature has, and that has to be decided. You know, but certainly they have to be a willing and enthusiastic partner in this if it's going to succeed. So it could be, and then when does it actually take place? You know, when does it actually get implemented? That would be part of the decision making as to the approval. And for some, they want to see it immediate or some parts of it immediately. For other parts, it might take longer. You know, but typically when you change graduation requirements, you change them for a particular class to start it, and typically that class is either in 7th or 8th grade. You know, typically it's the class that's 4 years, 5 years actually after you've done it. That wouldn't go, unless there are some things that could happen earlier. I don't know, you know. So yes, we need guidance. We need a timetable or timeline that would come with the recommendations that we will eventually make. I hope I didn't confuse everybody.
Well, one more question. Then are you planning on having any type of public input onto this thing? I mean,
Oh, that's what I'm going to be doing over the next 3 months.
Okay, that's what you're doing.
Right, that's
Okay,
what I
good.
mentioned before, getting with stakeholders.
Okay.
And much like the presentation I made to you, there'll be 3 parts to that. There'll be one telling them about the work we've done, and also the authorization, but the work we've done, what next steps are, and get their feedback on the work, what we're calling considerations. Okay. Yes, it's very important that we not only hear them, but we listen to them, and we take and value what stakeholders, which could be from parents to teachers, students, business and industry, legislators, university. As we were with, you know, the regents last night, I'll be in front of the first 2 groups I'm speaking in front of for stakeholders are actually SEAC and KBOR in the same week. 2 different perspectives on graduation. So, but both with a very important a connection to the graduation requirements.
That's good, because that's very important.
Yes. Thank you for those questions and clarifications. Any other questions that anyone has?
Anything else or any other reports?
Thank you.
Okay, we'll skip the board attorney's report. That'll take the pressure off Scott for having to come up with something. Request for future agenda items. I was having a discussion yesterday with Michelle. There's a great deal of interest in how the recommendations of the dyslexia task force are being implemented in schools. And she has some information about schools and districts that are really doing a good job of the process. And I request, and then I'll refer to her, that we invite some kind of best practice people to come and show us what they're doing, and maybe encourage others to do the same. I'll let you follow up, Michelle, if you want.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Porter. Yes, in talking with different districts, I'm gathering information. Met with a gal for 2.5 hours on Monday, and then have been in contact with a doctor in charge of early childhood education in Washburn area. So I want to make sure that we get those people maybe in front of us because they're on the front lines, and they're going to know what they're doing and what's working in their district, and maybe others can model that as well and go all in. So because they are having a lot of successes, and then there's some areas where we need to work on some things. So I think we should talk about some things where we need to work on, and then also the successes so that public can hear that. I think the parents need to hear that so that they also know what's, they're being informed as well. I think it'll be good, and hopefully it'll be either February or March when we can do that.
Again, reading is going to be, an emphasis that the legislator wants to deal with, and I think it'd be a good idea for us to be proactive in that area. Thank you. Melanie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a follow-up to yesterday's legislative post-audit report on cybersecurity, I would like to hear back from that group sooner than later, so that the board can kind of keep tabs on their progress, because time is of the essence, I think, in this situation. So if we could see them back in the next couple of months, maybe April at the latest, but hopefully sooner, that would be wonderful.
I don't, to follow up on that, I don't know enough to know what I don't know, but whenever we saw the report of the feedback, that was even alarming to me, and I think that that is something that I can see disasters happening, or potential disasters happening. So I would certainly support that. Anything else for future agenda items? Okay, Senator Bumgarner asked us about communications, and so there's a draft of a proposed letter. Where is that in our packet for you to review and make suggestions? If you see something that needs to be altered, Peggy will be glad to do that. Reminder that Citizenships Day. Do you know where we're going? Does anybody? Washburn Tech is a relatively large campus, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right across the street from Kate. I mean,
You want to park on the east side, about half the way down if you can. We'll go in those side doors, will be the closest to the conference part of it.
Okay, and then remind you that, and Ann's already talked about the Student Voice Committee, and she'll give us that information. Remind us that normally we have met with CARES on Wednesday morning. We're meeting with them on Tuesday morning before our next board meeting at 8 o'clock at the Ramada Inn. So I would encourage, that this is not a mandatory meeting, but I would encourage board members to attend that if at all possible. They appreciate us being there, and I think we get some really good input and relationship building when we meet with the CARES group. Anything else? Have I left anything out, Peggy? Okay, thank you. In that case, we're adjourned.